Hello ukulele friends, my name is Kevin and today we're going to talk about the difference between major 7 chords and dominant 7th chords. So you've probably seen the number 7 after a chord shape sometime when you've been playing, and then sometimes you see the chord shape and it says MAJ7. What is the difference? How are they different? Are they the same chord? Let's talk about it and get into it right now. Hey, before we get started, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and click that alert bell so you know when the next video is coming your way. If you're interested in more learning resources, head over to AllForUke.com where we have a full searchable library of songs, song sheets, practice tracks, worksheets, and more. All for you, AllForUke.com. So the first thing to take note of is the difference in how these two chords are written. So when we're talking about a dominant 7 chord, we'll typically just see it written with the letter C, D, E, F, G, maybe B flat, doesn't matter, and then it'll be followed by the number 7. You also in rare cases might find that it's written C, D, O, M, standing for dominant 7. Now, when we talk about a major 7 chord, we will always see the M-A-J written after it. So if we're talking about C major 7, that chord will be written C, and then M-A-J 7. That's a C major 7 chord. So the first difference between these two chords is how they are written. That's important to note when you're looking at a chord sheet because you'll get a very different sound if you interchange these chords. The next component to discuss here is the difference in sound between these two. So I'm going to play an example of a dominant 7 and major 7 back to back so you can hear what they sound like right next to each other. So I'll start with C7 and C major 7, and these are very close in proximity to each other so they can easily be mixed up. So here is our first one. I'm just index finger on the first fret of the A string for my C dominant 7. You've probably played this one before. It sounds like this. Kind of has this very bluesy, tense quality to it. So that's kind of how I identify a 7th chord. If I hear that kind of sound that I would hear in a blues song or something that kind of feels like it's unresolved and tense, that's telling me I'm talking about a dominant 7 chord. Now let's take a listen to the major 7 version of C. So here I am in the 2nd fret of the A string playing my C major 7. Take a listen to this difference. Only 1 fret apart, but a totally different feel, totally different vibe to this chord. To me, this sounds very dreamy. You hear this used in jazz, some other types of songs that maybe really want to have this bright and kind of atmospheric texture to it, the dreamy kind of quality to it. That's what your major 7 chord does. So that's what I listen for when I'm listening for that major 7 sound. Here again, C major 7. Now I'll just play a few other ones here, the D7 and the D major 7. And then here is D major 7. And then we'll finish it off here with a G7 chord. You guys have probably all played this one before. Here's the G7 chord. And then the G major 7 chord where I just bar the bottom 3 strings of the 2nd fret. Hey, Kevin here. Exciting news for you guys. I have a new offering. I've partnered with a company called Zip to offer one-to-one performance coaching. All that means is you submit a video to me with your questions, concerns on the uke. I submit a video back to you with tips, tricks, and some exercises to help you get through those little mogul hills. I'll leave a link in the description below for you to sign up. Let's have some fun together. Now let's get into why these chords sound so different even though they're so close in proximity. And that comes down to the chord formulas. So all chords have a formula that they are made up of that is derived from the major scale. So I'm going to keep everything in the key of C here. So the C major scale, briefly, is just do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. But when we play it on the uke, we play our open C string, the 2nd fret of the C string, that's our D note. And I also have a video on the notes of the neck I'll leave in the description so you can learn a little bit more about the major scale. So I have open, which is 1, 2nd fret, which is 2, and I have an open E string, which is my E note, I have my first fret F, third fret is G, and I have my open A string, which is my sixth, and then I go to my seventh here, which is B, and then I end on my octave, which is C. So I'll play through this scale for you and say the notes. We have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Or numerically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's an important note there. Back to my octave. So when we talk about a dominant 7 chord, we have a formula that makes that chord a dominant 7. And the formula that we use for a dominant 7th chord is 1, 3, 5, and flat 7. So it's not just a 7, it's a flat 7. So we take the 7th note and we flat it by a half step or 1 fret. So what would that note be? So I have 1, which is my C note, so that's one component to the chord we need. D we don't need. And then we have 3, which is E. 4 we don't need. And then we have our 5, which is G. So the first 3 notes that we need to make up the dominant 7th chord are C, E, and G. That's our 1, 3, 5. And then we have our 6th note, which we're not using, which is A. And then we get to that 7th note, which is B. So the B note is our 7th note. To make it into a dominant 7th, we need to flat that note. So what we do is we take and go from the 2nd fret down to the 1st fret. That is going down a half step or 1 semitone from the B note. That becomes B flat when we play it on the 1st fret. Which ironically, or not so ironically, is how we play our C dominant 7th chord. So the formula, and I have a whole series on chord formulas if you want to check this out and go a little further into the theory side of things, but the formula for the dominant 7th chord is 1, 3, 5, flat 7. Now when we talk about the major 7 chord, the formula is slightly different. The formula for the major 7 chord is 1, 3, 5, 7. So all we do is use that B note instead of going to B flat like we did with the dominant 7. So again, I'll go through this here for a C major 7. We have our 1, which is C. Skip the 2. We have our E note for 3. Skip the 4. We have the 5, which is G. So again, we have that same component there. We're making up a major triad. We have 1, 3, and 5. And then we get down here, we skip the 6, which is A, and we land on our 7 note, which is B. And again, this is the same note we play because we need that 7th note in here to make it a major 7, and that's how we play our C major 7 chord. So it doesn't matter what the chord is, if it's A, B, C, D, E, F, or G, it will always have that same formula of either 1, 3, 5 flat 7 for the dominant 7 or 1, 3, 5, 7 for the major 7. To finish things off here, I'd like to show you the difference between a chord progression with a major 7 and a dominant 7. So I have a couple here that I put together for you. The first chord progression is C major 7 to F, and then we go back to C major 7, F, D minor, and then we have a dominant 7 to end it, with a G dominant 7 there. So I'll just play through this with the island strum, just to kind of give you a sonic example of the major 7 chord progression. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Listen to this dreaminess. I go minor, and here comes the dominant 7. Back to major 7, major 7, major, minor. Here comes the dominant 7. Now, the only thing I'm going to do for the second chord progression here with the dominant 7 is I'm going to swap out the major 7 on the C and make that into a dominant 7. Now listen to how this slight change here of one note going from a major 7 to a dominant 7 changes how this whole chord progression feels. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, C7, F, C7, F, then D minor, G7, back to C7. Very bluesy, a little more tense. And then we're back to our minor. Well, now you are a master of the major 7 and dominant 7th chord and know the difference in the formulas, the shapes, the sound, and now you can use them in your own chord progressions. I've put together a PDF that you can grab at AllForUke.com where I have the different chord shapes for the major 7s and dominant 7th chords. Try using them in some of your chord progressions. And now when you see these in songs, you'll be able to identify the difference in sound and the difference in function of these chords. My name is Kevin. I thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I love hearing from you guys, and I'll see you next time.
Let's get carried away.